Hi, my name is Tom Randolph, and today we're going to look at the Clean Water Act and non-point source pollution. In 1972, the Clean Water Act was established, and point source pollution was the main focus of this new set of laws. So point source pollution comes from pipes and human-made ditches, very easily identifiable sources of pollution. And these sources were regulated by the EPA through a series of permits and permit systems that looked at those and regulated them. In the 1970s and 1980s, it became apparent that point source pollution was just a part of the problem. There was a much bigger problem, as this Yale Law Journal article points out, and that problem was non-point source pollution, pollution that comes from salt that's left on roads, from oil, from agricultural runoff, from sources that are very difficult to identify and single out. So this article suggests that the Congress needs to establish new incentives or new laws to stop non-point source pollution. Also, at this time, local regulators were saying we're not capable of solving the non-point source pollution. And it even goes on to say that there needs to be political action, some kind of incentives or grants perhaps to help the states to enforce some sort of non-point source pollution. The article goes on also to point out that groundwater was also being contaminated. And groundwater, once it's contaminated, it's pretty much impossible to clean once it's been impaired. Also, land usage was starting to be affected, and the states were saying we're not capable of taking care of this problem. Something needs to be done. And so in 1987, Congress amended the Clean Water Act under Section 319 with the non-point source pollution amendment. At this point, Congress did not allow for the EPA to enforce regulations. There were not going to be any permits in this type of program. Instead, Congress funded the EPA to give states incentives, to give states grants, to offer initiatives for them to hopefully clean up their non-point source pollution. And one of the ways this was done was through a calculation process called total maximum daily load. In the second article here, Pronsolino versus Nastiri gets into that whole issue of total maximum daily loads, which again is a calculation that is used to help determine how much pollution is in a river or should be in a river in a given day. Each state was responsible for listing impaired waters that exceeded the total maximum daily loads in each state, and the EPA had the authority to approve that number of total maximum daily loads. And this is where our court case comes in. On the Garcia River, a river that was known for salmon and salmon spawning and salmon migration, very much a protected fish there on the Garcia River. And the Pronsolino's had been using the river and using really the roads for lumber harvesting. And the river was exceeded the total maximum daily loads set by the state of California. Again, that was approved by the EPA. Pronsolino had already taken this to court once, and now they were having an appeal through the Ninth Circuit Court. And in their arguments this time said that the EPA didn't have the authority to approve of those total maximum daily loads. They were saying the EPA was misinterpreting their policy under the Clean Water Act, that they had no authority to approve what total maximum daily loads should be allowed in a river in California in this case. The case was looked at from different angles. Apparently, they looked at the judge and the court looked at a Dioxin versus Clark case, and then in that case, the EPA, it was shown, was correct in using total maximum daily loads to determine and measure toxins that were in a river. The final judgment was based on a 1984 Supreme Court landmark decision, the Chevron ruling, which said that agencies were able to interpret ambiguous regulations. It's saying that the EPA could interpret its regulations, its mandate to clean the nation's water, and therefore could set or approve total maximum daily loads for the state of California and therefore on the Garcia River. So the Clean Water Act, through this case, was affirmed. The ruling stated that EPA had acted within its delegated authority under the Clean Water Act. This case affected at least 48 other cases that I could find. The Thomas versus Jackson case used the Pronsolino case to show that total maximum daily loads can come from, or pollution that exceeds total maximum daily loads can come from point source and non-point source pollution. That was an important part of the Pronsolino case. Also in the U.S. District Court, the Pronsolino case was prominently cited to show that road sediments from timber harvesting and culvert discharges were also examples of non-point source pollution. So I hope you've learned a little bit about non-point source pollution, and thank you very much for your time.